Good morning. Morning. It is good to see everybody this morning. We know we still have people coming in from the 9:15 or the 9 o'clock service. Wait a minute, the 9 o'clock service. So I'm going to get all my talking out of the way while people are coming in. So by the time everyone's here, we can get to what we're really interested in. So first of all, God dwells in you. Let us pray. Holy and loving God, giver of all good gifts, we thank you for the incredible gift you give us when you give us to each other. We thank you for being present in this space. Enliven our hearts and minds. Spark our curiosity and surprise us with joy. In your holy name we pray. Amen. It is wonderful to have you here. Everyone, if you can turn and wave to everyone who's streaming us online. Good to have you all here with us. At All Saints Church. We would love it if you're new to know who you are and to let you know what's going on in the rest of this community. And so there are sign-up sheets, green contact sheets at the doors, and have you sign those before you leave. There are also, there's a welcome table on the lawn where you can pick up a red welcome bag, has a card you can fill out, has lots of information about All Saints Church. Please do that so we can continue to really feed each other with our gifts in this community. At all times, we put our faith into action here at All Saints Church. We actually have a lot of ways to do that. Starting this Sunday and going through November, we're going to be collecting unused new cosmetics and personal hygiene items for our transgender siblings through the LGBT Center. You can bring those and drop them off at the sign-up center or drop them off at the church office during the week. We have two vigils and solidarity events that we want to let you know about that are happening in solidarity with our Jewish siblings after the horrific massacre at the synagogue in Pittsburgh. At 3:45 this afternoon at Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center, there will be a Pasadena memorial service and prayer service and solidarity event. And then for the wider Los Angeles area at the Wilshire Federal Building at 11,000 Wilshire Boulevard at 6 p.m. tonight. That's 3:45 at PJTC, 6 p.m. at the Wilshire Federal Building. Please, as you can come out to those. Let's stand in solidarity and let's send a really clear message that we have bonds of love among ourselves and each other that cannot be broken, and that we will absolutely stand against all forms of white supremacy and anti-Semitism. So please come out for that. Also, we're putting our faith into action this Sunday by helping our partners and friends over at LA Voice. LA Voice is an amazing organization that we're just beginning to become a part of that is an interfaith coalition of congregations that have discovered that if we act together, we're much more powerful than if we act separately. And right now, they're collecting some data that we can help them with. So we would ask you to fill out a card there that confirms that you're going to vote on November 6th, and then make sure you go do it. And then it's also tracking who's voting no on Prop 5 and who's voting yes on Prop 10. And if you have questions about those, there'll be information there about those. You're not going to be contacted or harassed by filling this out. This is just so their organizers can gather data and determine what work needs to be done between now and the election to get people to the polls and to get the results that we need on these ballot measures. So please do that. There's also, if you don't have it already, a great recommendations comparison chart for ballot measures that's available at the action table. And finally, it's your generosity continues to make all the difference in so many ways. The generosity of your time and presence here, the generosity of the way that you give your labor in this community, and the generosity that we all have with our wealth. If you have filled out a pledge card for 2019, thank you so much. If you have yet to do that, we're really trying to get all of these pledge cards in by the end of December. We would love it if you would fill it out, bring it in. Just as always, say your prayers and have the conversations you need to have. And then just do what God puts on your heart and just jump out there and do it and have fun with it. Because this is, I really can't think of a better thing to do with the wealth that we have than to give it away for the love of the world. And we know we're able to do that at different capacities. And so just please prayerfully consider your pledge and get that in. And if you're watching online, you can pledge too to All Saints Church, and you can also click on that little donate button and make a gift right now to All Saints Church. And so thank you for the support that you give us. We have an amazing forum, and so I'm going to very briefly introduce who we have with us. we have someone who is an absolute hero of mine, and her name is Jessica Jackley. She is the co-founder of Kiva and served as Kiva's first chief marketing officer. If you don't know about Kiva, it is one of the more amazing things going. It is a way that any one of us can contribute on a microloan capacity and make a transformative difference for people and communities all over the world. When Robin and I were living in St. Louis, we used to have gatherings at our house where everyone would come and take the money that they would have spent going out for dinner, and we'd have a dinner together, and instead we would go on Kiva and figure out who to give the money to. And then once the loans get paid back, you give it again, and it literally, I'm still giving the money over and over again from those, and it is changing people's lives. She's married to this guy named Reza Aslan, who you may have heard of also. He is a writer, commentator, professor. He's written several books that we have at the table for you to buy. Zealot, No God But God, God, A Human History. I'm waiting for God, an autobiography. And Jessica also has a book called Clay, Water, Brick, Finding Inspiration from Entrepreneurs Who Do the Most with the Least. So leave here with an armful of reading for the next month. And pretty much I'm going to sit down and introduce Jessica Jackley and Reza Aslan. Come on forward.
Don't sit on the Capri Sun.
That was officially my favorite introduction ever. Yes. Thanks.
Amazing. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be back here.
I know. I love it here. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you to all of you for being here. I feel like we should start, because it's very possible there'll be minor interruptions. Mm-hmm. We'll start by introducing our three boys. Cyrus, maybe without the mask, without the Halloween mask.
There's Cyrus.
That's our 7-year-olds, Cyrus and Jasper, can you give a wave? And our 3-year-old, going on 30, Asa. Asa, say hi. Can you wave a little? There you go. There you go.
You'll probably hear more from them.
You'll see a lot of pictures and hear stories of these three as we go on today.
I think so.
So thank you for having us. So we were so privileged and lucky to spend all of our savings on a trip this summer.
It's true. It's true.
Around the world in 80-ish days. We said 80-ish because literally we're still not sure. Once you cross the date line, who knows, right?
It's confusing.
So we didn't want to pin it down. But it was about that much poetically. Around the world in 80-ish days with our three loves. We went to 13 countries, and I think it was like 22-ish cities. Again, ish is a theme for us. Thank you. And our time was focused on exploring the world's beliefs and understanding religions, different religions historically and today, and spirituality.
Yeah, and all with this larger goal that we have and have had for a while, and of raising spiritually conscious kids who are religiously literate, but who are not necessarily steeped in any one particular doctrine, but who are free to basically choose for themselves the ways in which they're going to express their spirituality. And it's a very difficult thing to do, I think, in this modern day and age for people of faith or people without faith. And so we're kind of using ourselves and our children as a guinea pig about how to do that, with the hope that perhaps we can create some kind of roadmap for others who are also interested in having that, raising kids who are spiritually conscious, religiously literate.
Yeah, and the breadth and the depth that we talk about a lot, we want them to have an understanding, be good citizens of the world, and have an understanding of at least, the major belief systems and traditions of people all over the globe, but also to have their own practices. I mean, that's undeniable. Even though we are an interfaith family, or really a multi-faith family, they have all their own sets of beliefs. Cyrus, for 2 years, has declared that he is Jewish. Jasper's really into our kids' Ramayana at home. Asa could be the reincarnation of the Buddha, we don't know.
Maybe.
So we're a multi-faith family, and so we all practice, despite our different preferences and styles and associations and upbringings, we all practice together. We pray together. We meditate, especially Cyrus, together. We do reflection, times of quiet and reflection, and we look at different scriptures that have guided all of us over the years, some with more years than others, right? And do those things together and have unity on that. So we have that depth. We're starting in that, even though we have different traditions as well as the breadth.
And then
anyway,
part of that,
go.
yeah. So part of that larger exercise was this trip. So we decided that we were going to take the boys around the world, immerse them in different religions, different faiths, just give them, this kind of look at the things that people believe around the planet.
So importantly, here is a picture of the first official minute of the trip. It's in front of a beautiful trash can in front of LAX.
Mm-hmm.
You hand your camera to someone, they take the picture, and you're like, thanks, right? So that's what we got of day one. Pretty fancy. And
look how fresh we look. It's amazing.
Everyone had
fresh,
haircuts.
We look happy.
And we're clean and showered,
Clean.
which is a thing
It's kind of incredible.
that you don't always get on big trips. So now I'm the optimist between the two of us. Big shocker, right? Just kidding. But even Reza, right? We both had high hopes for this trip. We had dreams about what we could give our kids in this experience. And overall, we do feel like it was a great success. But to be very honest, to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly, we know that they also remember things a little differently, and you never quite know what will stick, right? This is them finding the world's most interesting puddle, and they decided they had a long project they instantly decided they had to do. They were very busy. They had to build a rock bridge for bugs. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they did look up that day. I do know that we lost our tour group.
Yeah.
For real. They gave up on us. They came back and they're like, can we just have the recorder? So they left. It was a good day. Also, Asa found this real... I think they get it. They get why it's funny now. Also, Jasper's our comedian. So Asa found a really amazing bottle cap one day, this water bottle lid. Again, not sure if he remembers where he was.
Look up, honey.
Yeah, look up was a theme. Spiritually and otherwise. Anyway, one day they realized that those sunblock safari shirts had so many pockets, and they could basically double their body weight if they packed all the pockets with sand. So that was interesting. And Asa, do you remember the day you got really frustrated because Mama and Baba wouldn't let you had this big stick and you wanted to hit a wall and we wouldn't let you hit the wall? Do you remember? It's because it was a very important wall. And then this is one of my favorites. So do you guys remember? Well, they're busy. It's like my nature. I'm going to keep looking over. I'll try to look at all of you. So one day they got umbrellas on a tour. They were given... I don't know what the tour guide was thinking, God bless her, but she gave them all these gigantic umbrellas, so that was it for anything else that happened that day. Now, if you would have turned literally 10 feet to the right, you would have seen that we were at the entrance to the garden tomb, right? So
yeah, the tomb of Jesus' resurrection.
No big deal.
We were like, look to the left.
But you guys,
look, they were like, no, we have an umbrella.
Umbrellas.
Yeah. All of this is to say that,
Yeah.
we were very proud of our kids, and they were really great. But we'd like to pretend that the entire thing was this incredible spiritual awakening everywhere that they went. But it's mostly puddles and bottle caps
And umbrellas.
And umbrellas. Yes, that's right.
And on the other hand, so yes, on one hand, you don't know what's going to stick. On the other hand, Asa, our 3-year-old, can say hello and thank you in a dozen languages still, and it's pretty great at that. And we do believe we gave them this overview, our best effort at giving them this survey course in belief. Now, why did we do this, right? As we said, why did we not just go somewhere and immerse ourselves and go deep? I think there's a time and a place for it, but for us, the breadth right now for this stage of their development really seems to matter the most, and we believe it's something we can give them for sure, as opposed to encouraging them to go deep too fast before they know what that depth really means. We sort of said this early. We're ahead of our slides.
We certainly want them to develop depth, but we're not worried about that happening. Yeah. We think that that's going to happen on their own. Right now, what we want to do is give them breadth.
Right.
And so that's why this trip was about being in cathedrals and being in Zen gardens and Shinto temples and mosques and Viking
longhouses. Is in Norway.
That's right.
Anyway, Q&A
and
if you'd like.
Tombs and various shrines and Buddhist temples and synagogues. All of this was this notion that at this stage for our kids, experiencing even for a little while spirituality and that kind of spiritual meaning means in the way that it's reflected in a lot of different places is the most valuable thing that we could offer them.
Yes, it gives them perspective and context and humility as they understand their own path and the communities that we're a part of.
Okay, so what we thought we would do with you guys is just very quickly give you just a handful of lessons that we learned on these 80 days, and maybe you can use them yourselves with your kids and grandkids. Maybe not, but this is basically what we kind of walked away from these 80 days with. All right. Am I on the right? Am I on the right?
So that's our slide.
That's
right?
it. That's our right side. Yeah, this is
now.
what we believed.
That's the
Yes,
slide.
this is Jessica's the slide master here. Okay, so the first lesson that I have to say that we kind of came away with is this notion about being very clear and concise about what we as a family believe. What we have found, and we have this kind of same issue here, what we have found is that oftentimes what happens, particularly when you're talking to more progressive or secularized parents or grandparents who are interested in all the religions of the world and want to give their kids, a broad education, is that when confronted by questions, deep, meaningful questions, like what happens after we die, or why is there evil in the world, the impulse is to say, well, some people believe this. Some people believe that you go to heaven. Some people believe nothing happens. Some people believe that you're born again and again and again.
And that's really important to do.
It's okay,
and we
yeah.
do that. We do that as well.
Absolutely.
But we think what's easy to forget and seems crucial at this stage, and I really like to dork out and read spiritual development, kid-related books. It's so, so important for them to also hear, this is what we believe. So to go through this, some people, other people, et cetera, is wonderful.
You got to finish that thought.
To be able to say, we, as a family,
this is what we
this is what's
believe.
important to us out of it.
And by the way, there's all kinds of data and surveys from child psychologists, child developmental specialists, particularly those who study spirituality in children, to bear this out. That oftentimes what happens is in your attempt to give them a breadth of ideas, instead they don't have an anchor. So they'll accept the idea that these are all the things that people believe on a particular subject. What they need is the coda to that, which is, this is what we believe.
And by the way, we debated on making this a second point or not, but I found these big truths that are neither doctrine, neither specific, look at this scripture and therefore we believe this, and yet not vague, but big anchoring beliefs like God made everything. God is everywhere. God loves everyone. Pretty simple stuff, but Asa, our boys, they understand that. And we found those repeated again and again and again in different contexts in pretty beautiful ways. So
when Jasper and Cyrus were very little, they had this very interesting conversation that we overheard where they were talking about how God is everywhere, and Cyrus said, "You mean God is in my toothbrush?" And Jasper said, "Cyrus, God's in everyone's toothbrush. It's not a big deal."
what's up, baby?
Which
Let's
we
go.
love. Hi, Jasper.
Hi, Jet.
Okay.
That was that guy.
So I'll give you an example of this. So one of the things that we did, we didn't just want to do, kind of high religion or, established religions. We wanted to do all kinds of beliefs. So when we were in Ireland, we went on a leprechaun hunt because leprechauns are a real thing.
Again, we said spirituality and
And beliefs.
and just belief. So,
And this year, we actually went and found the last leprechaun whisperer, and he's been hunting leprechauns for a very long time. Now he's certain that leprechauns are real because he actually found a leprechaun outfit. He pieced it together. That's us in the leprechaun hovel. With the leprechaun stuff, and this conversation was very
Hovel?
interesting.
Is that what you
Hovel,
called
is that a thing? Hovel?
I don't know.
Leprechaun
I don't-
home?
That's a weird
I don't
word.
know. It's underground. It has rocks.
Cave. It's a cave.
It's a leprechaun cave. That's a better way of putting it. So in this leprechaun cave, and we had this conversation about whether leprechauns are real or not. And again, one of these very interesting conversations that the boys had that really brought a lot of this we believe stuff to the forefront. So there was a question about, are leprechauns a myth or not? And our question was...
Cyrus, do you remember what you said a myth was?
Okay, that's all right.
We
That's
wrote it
all right.
down.
What is it? Yeah, what do you think, Jazz?
A myth is something that people have never seen and they don't know whether it's real or not.
Yeah, we wrote down what you said, and now he's
That's
reading
pretty
it.
good,
That's what
yeah.
you said. And Cyrus
So-
said a myth is something that tells people how the world went, but it maybe is not really true.
Right, and it was this idea of truth that got them really interested because Jasper was saying, well, you know, Cy says myths were fake. Guess what? Well, God is a myth. Is God fake? And Cyrus yelled, interrupting, God is not a myth. And then Jasper said, yes, he is. To some people, because he is a myth to other people. Cyrus said, but God is not a myth. And Jasper said, well, yeah, he is to other people. Just like some people believe leprechauns are myths. And anyway, a myth is not fake. This is Jasper. We don't know that it's fake or not. Like, we don't know if God is fake or not because no one has ever seen him. We don't know if leprechauns are fake or not because no one has ever seen a leprechaun. And then Cyrus's argument was, Cyrus's argument was, if God was fake, like God wouldn't, nobody would have been able to make us. And Jasper said, yeah, and if leprechauns were fake, we wouldn't have money or luck. So there you go.
So we have the whole transcript because I hit record, right, to get this magic. So it was a really wonderful conversation starter about what it means to believe in things or not that are invisible, that you cannot see, but maybe you can sense in other
grounded
ways.
in what we believe ourselves. Hey, Jess, do you mind going back and sitting with your brother? Okay, I love you. Okay, so that's the first thing, that first lesson that we learned is breath is important, but you always have to bring it back to what you, yourself, your family, your community believes.
We
The
should go
second thing.
faster.
Oh, go faster? Okay, we're gonna go faster.
I mean, not to be faster, but we
Yeah.
need to be like more precise with our words.
Got it.
Okay, so the second one was about common ground being inevitable, and you know, I kind of internally kind of roll my eyes when I hear something like this. Like, I understand, of course, Reza, I know I've read all your books. It's fine. Like, all religions have common things. I get it, but it was really beautiful and surprising to discover this as we went around. We, went to Delphi. It's Delphi, I guess, not Delphi, the Oracle, etc. And of course, this is the navel of the world, which the boys thought was hilarious. That's what that means.
Yeah.
But
So this concept, when we got there, this idea that where we were standing was considered by the ancient Greeks to be the navel of the world. And we explained to the boys exactly what that means. They believed that this was the center, this was where creation started, that this is, the core sacred heart.
and as a
of
family,
the
we're sort of
entire
partial to creationists.
universe.
Like, we really like origin stories. Go
Yes.
ahead.
And that was very fascinating to them until we went to Stonehenge and they discovered, oh, the Druids thought this was the navel of the world. And then we went to Giza and we had to explain that the ancient Egyptians thought this was the navel of the world. And then we went to Jerusalem and we had to explain that the ancient Israelites believed that this was the navel of the world. And for them, it started becoming clear that, wait, either the world has a lot of navels, which is probably not the case, or it's so fascinating that all of these different religions all around the world, separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles, all have this similar conception about their sacred place being the center. And it was this kind of real-time experience for them about how so many different religions, so many different cultures may seem different and disparate on the surface, but that underneath they have these similar metaphors and myths that bind them together.
And that humans have a common nature everywhere. They all really feel like they're the most important, and everything revolves around them. So, we didn't set out to teach that particular lesson, but it came up as we confronted these unavoidable overlaps. Another one.
Number 3.
Did I do the?
Yeah.
Oh, it is faith.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We teach our kids. It's great to have your list of what you believe. Hi, Joey. Hi. We see a friend in the back too. One of the classmates of the boys. So nice to see you. Sorry, focusing. So we talked to them about, it's great to believe what you believe. That's wonderful. It's nice to talk about, but it doesn't mean anything unless you put it into action. In fact, Cyrus did not want to come up and give his own speech today, but Cyrus, did you change your mind at all about sharing your motto, Cyrus? No. So he has a motto. He says, don't just be careful, be helpful. He wrote it down in case we didn't.
You have to say it with the right emphasis.
Okay.
This is how he says it.
Okay.
Cyrus's motto is, don't be careful, be helpful. And the way that he puts it is that if you see somebody, like a poor person,
And you say you care.
who
about
cares?
them,
Yeah, if that's all you
fine,
say, big deal.
But
You have to be
do
helpful.
something with that.
That's right. Did
feeling
I
that
say
you
it
have.
right, Sai?
Pretty good, yeah.
Eh.
Okay. So,
Eh.
so we try to talk
was
to them
okay.
about that, and we saw, buildings and structures, and we learned all sorts of amazing history about the incredible things that people have done over time in the name of faith, in the name of what they believed. We visited Bethlehem and talked about, I don't want to debate with you right now, but about, is this the birthplace or not of Jesus?
It's not.
Yeah. Anyway, and is this the first one? The red is is marked as the birthplace, and the other is where the manger was technically, or allegedly. But basically, and there's a whole other talk to be done about how heartbreaking it felt to show up at these places that you imagine in your mind as simple and bare, and they're so layered, overdone, gilded to the max, and then some, and then
But while we were in Bethlehem, we talked about the birth of Jesus and what that meant, and,
Yeah.
and the values that Jesus represents. And then on the way home, we took the long way back to Jerusalem so that we can go to the wall.
And wait,
which,
I think I feel like you actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're doing a great job, and I love you, and I'll give you more. I'll give you more feedback later. But I'm just
Yes.
kidding.
Should I go back?
No. Just I feel like you rushed through the point of we talk about
Didn't
Jesus
you
very
told
much.
me to rush.
No, I know I know. I'm sorry if it's unclear. You're doing great. But basically, we talk about Jesus very much through a zealot-like lens. Big surprise there. As a revolutionary, as somebody who stood for things and did brave things and bold things in the name of protecting other people, in the name of compassion, in the name of righting wrongs in the world. So continue. Thanks. Good job.
Yes, thank you. That was good. And then on the way out, we took the long way and went by the wall that separates Israel from Palestine, what is, I think, correctly referred to as the apartheid wall, and gave them an opportunity to kind of see what this actually looks like, on the ground. That you can go to Bethlehem, you can go to the Church of the Nativity, you can see sort of the tourist areas, but you can't forget that you're sitting on ground in which the people who live there.
You wait for hours to leave again
Yeah, that's
through all
right.
the checkpoints, which is also another lesson, world
that,
lesson.
that the people who live in this tourist place don't have rights, don't have privileges. This, when we were there, this Italian artist here was making a painting of Ahed Tamimi. Those of you may be familiar with Ahed Tamimi. She's the teenager who slapped an IDF soldier after he shot her brother and went to jail for it for months, was released recently and has now become a big icon for Palestinian resistance. But, we were watching someone memorialize her on the wall, and then the next day, after we got back to Jerusalem, there was a report that the man who made this painting
Who's on that ladder, ostensibly.
Yeah, was arrested and deported as well. And so this is something that we talk about all the time with our kids, the idea that faith is an action word, that it's, it's fine, yes, define what you believe, that's great, but if you're not going to bother to actually put it into practice, then what's the point?
And we're a little biased, maybe, but we think they're kind of getting it. This was like last year, but they also have initiated in our neighborhood their own little rallies or marches at the playground and brought paper and markers for other people to express what they believe as well. So we're hopeful that sinks in.
Number 4.
Making it real. That's you again.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, it's you.
Yes. The other thing is you can talk about beliefs all you want to, but for kids, no matter how old they are, those beliefs become very theoretical unless you can ground them in ritual. And so it's the ritual that makes it real. So for us, yes, we would go places, we would talk about what people believe, we would talk about what we believe, we would put our faith into action, but we would always do practices in these places so and that's where the memory was. So if you talk to them today about, the things that they experience, what they will talk about is not the lessons that they learned, but the things that they actually did. And whether that was going to church, doing candles. We were at the top of Masada, and Jasper got a shofar, which was very important to him about this idea of the battle cry. We went to the River Jordan and we baptized each other as a family, which was very important. We went to numerous temples and shrines and experienced the process of praying and giving offerings. We went to the wall in Jerusalem and put our prayers inside the wall. We made sure that we actually did activities that reflected the beliefs that we were learning instead of just simply learning those beliefs.
And I think we have so many little anecdotes and stories of how that's played out at home. The way that each of our boys prays. Hey, Jasper, Jas, shh, 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 shh. Jas, can I share the story of how you pray at night with the hands? Is that okay? So Jasper's made up a prayer where he prays for each family member. He has handprints. We made an art piece with all the handprints of the family members, and he touches them and closes his eyes and says a prayer for each person. They've developed their own rituals. There's like this beautiful motion after the prayer that I have to practice a lot. I don't always get it right, but I'm working on it. You want to go sit with Bubs? He hasn't gotten to snuggle yet. So we've enjoyed watching that play out, and that they know that not just your beliefs lead to action, but there are ways to sort of galvanize them in your own heart and your own body through those rituals, through ceremonies, whether they are traditional, official, church mandated, things like that, or they're ones that you make up that are true for you and in your own heart. So, last but not least, God is with us. Of course we know. Of course some of these lessons are things we already knew, but they got reiterated again and again in such beautiful ways as we travel. There's a poem that is probably my favorite by Scott Cairns. And I can read it because I know some of the print is a little bit small. So it's called The Entrance of Sin. And actually, when you see it on the page, it's laid out as it would be in a traditional, in sort of the old, New Revised Standard Version Bible, where it's in columns. It looks very much like scripture on the page, but for now. Yes, there was a tree, and upon it, among the wax leaves, an order of fruit which hung plentifully, glazed with dew of a given morning. And there had been some talk off and on, nothing specific, about foregoing the inclination to eat of it. But sin had very little to do with this or with any outright prohibition. For sin had made its entrance long before the serpent spoke, long before the woman and the man had set their teeth to the pale, stringy flesh, which was, it turns out, also quite without flavor. Rather, sin had come in the midst of an evening stroll, when the woman had reached to take the man's hand, and he withheld it. In this way, the beginning of our trouble came to the garden almost without notice, and in later days, as the man and the woman wandered idly about their paradise, as they continued to enjoy the sensual pleasures of food and drink and spirited coupling, even as they sat marveling at the approach of evening and the more lush approach of sleep, they found within themselves a developing habit of resistance. One supposes that even then, this new taste for turning away might have been overcome. But that is assuming the two had found the result unpleasant. The beginning of loss was this: every time some manner of beauty was offered and declined, the subsequent isolation each conceived was irresistible. I get chills every time I read that. So without a doubt, the best thing and the most challenging thing about this adventure was the togetherness. Hey, Jas, Asa, shh, 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 shh. Jasper, shh. Thanks, Lovey. Thank you. The best thing about it was each other. The best thing was the togetherness. It's the opposite of isolation, of turning away from each other. Every morning, waking up together, every meal together, every activity together. I mean, falling asleep usually in the same bed because everyone's small enough that a king size usually fits us, and we're cheap, so it's expensive to do this. So let's be honest. So usually everyone would pile in the shower together. Like, it was just togetherness all the time, like family intimacy boot camp,
All the
right?
time.
All the time. When we got home for the first 48 hours, literally everyone was in a different room in the house, just and then we came back together, but we needed a little downtime. Anyway, every day, the five of us, super together, went on this hunt, right, to find God, to understand the divine, to experience the spiritual. And when Reza and I think about the core of what we want to give our children, it's this sense of connectedness, right, of relationship, of love. That's it. We want for them to have this closeness with us and with each other and family, and we also want that connection to God. Because to us, this is the opposite of isolation. It's the beginning of all good things. And this trip reiterated that these two things, closeness with each other and closeness with God, are inextricably tied together. Amidst all the sights and natural wonders, we felt God's presence most in one another. And we saw our boys grow closer to each other, adventure after adventure. We saw them start to take care of each other in new ways. And more than it had ever been before, it became habit. Because while we were in the world so much, we were really kind of on an island of just us, the five of us, going all around. So we got to do this practice of seeing each other, seeing God, turning towards one another, and reaching for one another's hands and finding them. So it's the end of our trip, but it's not the end of our journey, of our adventure together to explore and know and understand God. And so we're going to keep talking to them and taking adventures near and far. And we're going to keep having these conversations with our kids about what we believe and what they believe and what's most important in life, even when they're a little tired of hearing us talk. Okay, like now? Nice one, Jas. Nice. Good one. And we're going to remind them as often as we can that yes.
Did he just say right now?
Yeah, he literally is like right now. I'm telling you, comedic timing in that one. It's a gift. So we want to remind them that yes, God is out there in the world, but I mean, God is everywhere, right? But that also means that God is always here, and the best thing that we can do every day as a practice, as a family, is look for and honor that presence in each other.
Thank you. I think, do we have 10 minutes to, I think we have 10 minutes for questions. Yeah.
And
So-
you can ask the
and
boys
there's
too,
a
if you'd
mic
like. I'm
coming
sure they'd be
around.
happy to
And why
chat.
don't you just choose and make it
Can I
life easier
Yeah.
that way?
Do you need one?
The people?
Yeah. I
If
guess
they
you
ask
could
you a
do that
question,
too.
sure, maybe.
I just want to say they're so young. You know you're going to have to repeat this whole trip in a
That's
few
our
years.
goal.
We're saving now, actually.
Oh my gosh. Also, like at dinner every other night, we're like, what are your top 10 memories of Rome? Tell me now. Like, we are forcibly
Yeah, we're
reminding
like,
them and showing pictures. They're
You
never going to
must
forget.
remember this.
Yeah.
It's amazing you're not more exhausted than you are. God must be with you. So, I have a question based on Reza's research about two propositions: that belief is most important, which is the first, and then 3 and 4, which is something like rituals make it real, and
Yeah.
faith is an action word. Because my sense, because I've taught world religions for a long time, and like Reza, I've traveled around the world, is that beliefs in this day and age, in this globalized world, and the importance of beliefs, which is a mark of monotheistic religions, largely. It's not true of the Confucian religions or the Chinese religions. Beliefs tend to divide more than they bring people together. And so I seriously question the priority that you guys are placing on saying that beliefs are most important. I would say that practices and rituals are more important, and it's through practices and rituals, and in the case of children, play, that you then introduce beliefs.
Yeah.
All right?
Well, I guess what we would say is we always make a differentiation between religion and faith, and for us, belief is about faith, not about religion. So what I would say about what you're saying is that it's not beliefs that separate us, it's religion that separates us. The people in this room, for the most part, are Christian, and I would imagine the people in this room would say, as a Christian, that means that what we believe is that Jesus cares for the poor and for the downtrodden and for the hungry and the oppressed over the wealthy and the powerful. I would imagine that the church that overwhelmingly voted for and continues to support Donald Trump also calls themselves Christian, so same religion. And yet they would say something vastly different about what Jesus stands for. So for us, what we always say is, you can call yourself whatever you want to. That label itself is more about identity and about the community that you call yours. that fundamentally what's important is the things that you believe, how you actually express your faith. And for us, yes, absolutely, it's about putting it in practice, like you said.
Well, and I think the feeling that I have with that first point, the intention was to communicate. I think it's most important to be vulnerable and open and knowable to your children. And I remember my dad and I had a conversation when I was in high school, and I was like, Dad, here's this situation at school, what should I do? And he was like, well, Tony Robbins would say this, but Dale Carnegie would say this. And I'm like, okay, but what do you think? And he was like, oh yeah, sorry. And he told me what he thought. I wanted him, that's what I wanted, his thoughts on what was and what could happen. And I think with our boys, we have noticed ourselves, we get so excited to share all the possibilities. We have to remember to come back to, but here's what I think, here's what we think, here's what feels important to us. So I wouldn't say that beliefs are the most important. I meant to say, we meant to express knowing each other, being honest and open and authentic feels very significant to us.
Yes, I have a question. When you tell your children what you believe, when you come back to that, have you yet shared with them, or is it too early, about how you got there, or your path to getting what do you believe?
Well, their eyes glaze over when we do too many of the back in my day stories, although we got a chance to trap them and they on long train rides and stuff this summer and tell them last time I was in China, it was super different, let me tell you about it. So in terms of our actual testimonies, the evolution of our faith journeys and stuff, they know anecdotes, but we haven't had the long, single start to finish explanation. Anytime they ask, I'm ready and eager and excited to do that.
Did your own beliefs evolve or change over this trip, seeing all these different cultures and practices?
Do you want to go?
Well, not mine necessarily, but I am curious about your time and with your parents and everything.
By the way, if you ever want to know what Reza's thinking, look at the eyebrows. He's like, you want to go? Yeah. Yes, so I feel like in subtle ways, it was more of I revisited beliefs that either became, weakened or strengthened. I feel like I learned a lot that I thought I knew about just history, right? I kept feeling like we would encounter these rocks that were really important, like rocks last. That was a lesson. I kind of knew that. But we'd see cave paintings in France, and then the Giant's Causeway, millions of years old, this crazy formation in Ireland. And again we would see these structures of stone or writing on stone, cuneiform, whatever. It was always the importance of rocks. That was a theme for me. But in general, I feel like the theme for me, the way my faith is continuing to evolve, and this trip was no exception, I can't list 20 different specific doctrinal beliefs that I would stand behind at all costs that mean everything to me. I have 2 or 3 biggies about, mine are honing in more along the lines of what I said earlier, God is everywhere, God loves everybody. I feel like I'm getting fewer but stronger and maybe bigger, wider beliefs. And I am a Christian, and I do stand behind, maybe those other 20 things in a different way, but what they don't feel is important to me. I hope that's okay to say. I'm just being honest. So there you go. I'm happy to talk more. I'm happy to share. I'm still kind of in process. I see a question in the back.
Yes.
Look.
What was your favorite place you went on the trip? What was your favorite
What
place?
a good question. Do you want to answer that? What was your favorite place in the trip?
Hawaii.
Hawaii. That was, yes. On the way back, we stopped at Hawaii. How about besides Hawaii?
Oh, Jasper said either nowhere, no way, or Norway. What did you say?
Norway.
Nowhere. Everywhere,
That's a good
nowhere?
word.
Asa, what was your favorite? Norway.
Paris.
Paris?
Yeah.
All right, that was nice. My favorite was Kyoto. We had a pretty amazing week in Kyoto where we really we introduced the boys to Zen meditation, and Cyrus, you really loved it, didn't you? He still does it sometimes. When he gets frustrated, he's like, I'm going to go meditate.
No, that's not true. Oh, I never actually meditated here in California. Well, when I was mad.
Oh,
So
when you were
I
mad.
never.
When do you do your meditations then?
Just whenever I want.
Just whenever you want. And what do you do when you meditate? When you do Zen?
You just stare at things.
That's right. You just stare at something. And what happens if like a thought or an idea comes into your mind?
You let it go.
You let it go. Exactly.
Thank you for that question.
I think we have to move on. Were you guys going to stick around for a little bit?
Sure,
And we got-
absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, we have to close up here so our streamers can say goodbye. Thank you. Can we
Thank
give them
you
a
so
hand?
much.
Thank you so much
Thanks,
for being
everybody.
here.
Thank
The whole
you.
family.